Okay.
Welcome to. I'm sorry.
No,
were you going to say something?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then in that case, welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast. My name is Dan, and
yeah,
Erik over there.
I'm Erik.
Did you want me to?
I
Do you want me to keep
I
introducing
don't
you,
care.
or do you want to just?
I don't care. We did not do any sort of introduction on the last episode, though, at all. Not
No,
nothing.
not at all.
We just didn't say the name of the podcast, our names, nothing.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
okay. Wasn't the first, and won't be the last.
no.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it might have been the first.
I think there were at least I think there was at least one other one where I was like, oh, we didn't say our names
right.
at all.
Yeah.
Accelerativ Thrust, yeah. So, I don't know, like, I guess I kind of had a random thought, like, just pop into my head that has nothing to do with anything.
Nice.
It's very, very pointless piece of information that is probably something that went over my head. And I'm sure that everybody else is just like, yeah, duh, Dan, you never realized that? Like, so, you know the Barks root beer?
I do.
Okay, so, you know the Barks has bite, right?
Uh-huh.
So, is that like, when they say Barks has bite, is it like, okay, so like a dog barks and a dog can bite too?
Oh,
so is
snap. I never thought of that either.
Yeah, so is that like
Barks
what that's
has
supposed
bites.
Barks has bites.
Damn,
Yes.
you're a genius.
Is it referencing a dog?
Well, yeah, I mean it tracks, you know, like their bark is worse than their bite kind of idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I always thought it just meant because it has caffeine.
Yeah, that's that's always been like the only root beer that had caffeine. I remember and I was shocked when I learned that it did, because I think parents everywhere hated that company as well as Sun-Kissed Orange, because they were lying to everybody. They were subtly putting caffeine in their products.
Whoa, I didn't know
So-
Sunkist had it too.
Yep.
That's great.
Sun-Kissed has caffeine as well. And
Nice.
so they were sudden. And I think even Ruby, for some reason, Ruby Red Squirt has it too. But not the regular Squirt, just
Really?
Ruby Red.
I thought
Yes.
Squirt did. I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know,
Squirt
though.
does. Well, no, I don't think it does, because I saw some the other day and it actually emphasized caffeine free on the label.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically what they were doing is they were making these parents, and it was definitely the company's fault, because, I mean, parents don't really have any responsibilities. So they
Yeah.
just really have to, they have to rely on everybody to do things for them. And so basically, like, these companies were forcing these parents to give their kids their products, thinking that, okay, it's okay because it's 10 o'clock at night and doesn't have caffeine. The sugar doesn't do anything. It's just the caffeine,
Yeah.
So,
I love caffeine.
yeah,
I love
me
it
too.
so much. It's one of the best things in the world.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I love it.
What's your favorite form of caffeine, or what's your favorite drink that has caffeine?
Oh,
in
I
it?
was gonna
Like,
say I just snort it or freebase it mostly.
yeah.
But,
Do they sell them in those little packs now?
Yeah. Yeah. So wait, what form? Like coffee or soda or?
Yeah, coffee,
kind of thing?
soda, tea.
I like coffee because it has the most caffeine. But I love it in anything. I'll have it in an energy bar. A shot of espresso. I'll even take a caffeine pill if they still make them. I have no idea. That was a big thing when I was a kid, like Vivarin. It's like, come on, man.
Fiverr.
Jeez.
I do. That I don't remember, but what scares me more than anything is those energy drinks, like
Oh yeah.
that are, like Monster and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just, that seems like an intimidating, even though it probably, in the grand scheme of things, maybe doesn't have as, like I have no problem drinking a whole pot of coffee.
Right.
Which I guarantee.
Well, I think it's offset by all the sugar and other stuff too.
Yeah, and all the other stuff added to it. But it's like, it's scary. That's an intimidating way to have caffeine.
I think that's the idea. You know, like they're banking on the people drinking Monster energy drink, thinking that they're cool.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
they are.
It's kind of like
I
I eat a lot of hot chips. Oh, they are cool. Don't get me wrong. But I eat a lot of really hot chips, and I always like the packaging of those because they're just like, this will fucking melt your face chips, you know? And it's kind of the same thing. It's like,
see, like energy drinks and like hot chips and like hot Cheetos and things like that instantly makes me think of like strobe lights and that voice that you just did.
strobe lights.
Yeah, well,
like
just,
at a rave or at,
like neon like stuff, like neon lights that have like the Monster claw and maybe the hot Cheetos label. This is just in my mind what that stuff reminds me of. It's all like, it seems marketed specifically to like those people that are like willing to just like
cyber goths.
Cyber goths, yeah, live life with no consequences.
Gotcha.
Which brings me to another point.
Yeah.
What if life had no consequences?
Well, it doesn't.
Well,
oh, you mean in not in the just the overarching grand scheme of things. You mean
right.
day to day.
Okay, like I always envied Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day.
Oh, sure.
What the hell was his name? What was the character's name? I don't remember.
Was it? It was Phil.
It was Phil, yeah. Like the groundhog. Yeah, Phil.
Yep.
I always envied Phil for like being able to like drive head on into a train on train tracks and wake up the next morning.
Well, if that's what you're talking about, then technically there would be no consequences for that.
Yeah. And
because you'd be dead.
Well, yeah, but in his life though, he just wakes up the next day.
I see. Yeah, right.
So like what if there really was like a real life Groundhog Day that happened to somebody? Like somehow something happened in this matrix that we live in and it glitched in someone's life to where they could never just go. It's like they have to wake up no matter what happens.
Well, you could probably accomplish that with some VR pretty well.
You mean V8? Since we're talking about drinks?
VR, virtual reality.
Oh, virtual. Okay,
yeah, sorry.
So not the,
you might get it out of V8. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of vegetables.
It's got a lot of vitamins. Like it's a real. It was actually the original energy drink.
That's true.
I just saw that on a commercial.
Oh wow.
Yeah, V8, the original energy drink. That's what they're marketing it as now.
Well, that's
now
good.
see, so you got one side of the energy drink market that is the neon lights and the technos and all that stuff. But then you got the V8, which is like the gardeners and, stuff like that. And,
so they're like the hippie goths.
yeah, the hippie goths, exactly.
Everything has to be goth. Just what style?
They don't really dig the neon lights. They like carrots and tomatoes and stuff.
Right.
Sun. They like the sun.
Oh, man.
That's what they like. The sun and the wind.
Yeah.
Sometimes the rain, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe they're not goths at all.
Well,
maybe we've discovered a group of people that somehow aren't goths.
Yeah. I always thought everybody was, just automatically.
Just some derivative, some subsect of goth. I mean, that's how I operate.
Is there any such thing as a happy goth? Like a satisfied goth? Do they exist?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's tough because it depends on what you allow to fall under the category of goth. Like, I would not say that The Cure is goth necessarily, but Robert Smith definitely is a happy, upbeat person some of the time. Wearing big bear costumes and day glow socks in the videos, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
I forgot about that.
yeah, so I don't know. I think goth is whatever you want it to be. Really,
Yeah.
it's a state of mind.
Yeah.
It
Forget
just
all
means you
that
don't
other
really
stuff.
like the beach. I think that's all it really comes down to. It's like,
Oh.
do you like setting in the sun? No. Well, you're probably goth then.
Okay, so then I was wrong. The V8 sector of the energy drink crowd, they're not goth. They're just hippies.
Right. No, they might be death hippies though. I think it's
Like
know.
Alice Cooper.
Maybe like Gish era Smashing Pumpkins.
That definitely is a much better. But see, like somebody said, like I think it was King Buzzo from the Melvins said that he liked the angry hippies, like Alice Cooper. He called Alice Cooper an angry hippie. He did. He was discovered by Frank Zappa, which I would definitely say that Frank Zappa would fall under the category of angry hippie if there were such a thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, he's not. I definitely don't think he was a hippie, but he, like a hippie is not an angry hippie is not a hippie. Angry hippie is just a whole nother genre of person.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're defining all these subcultures so that our listeners know what they can or cannot do.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's our goal.
Because like
this.
with punk rock, I mean, come on. There's one way to be punk and every other way is being a sellout. And
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm not even going to tell you what way there is to be punk because you'll just screw it up.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly. Like,
either you know or you don't. That's
I mean, even the ones that actually live the true punk lifestyle screw it up some eventually. So really, there is no like real punk rock. It's all fake.
well, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with having or not having a mohawk. I don't remember. One way you're a punk and one way you're a poser. So I don't know. Figure it out.
The question is what kind of dye are you using on that mohawk?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Are
the
you a big
real-
sellout using Manic Panic or do you use Kool-Aid like a real cool person?
Do you think Kool-Aid is bad for the hair?
Probably not. I don't know. You probably already just bleached it with peroxide anyway, so probably not going to screw
Yeah.
it up anymore.
That's true. If it's
I haven't
already
had crazy colored hair in a long ass time. Feeling
yeah,
weird
no,
about
me
it.
neither. Same here. We need to bring it back. We need to bring it back.
So wait, since I haven't had weird colored hair in a long time, am I a poser or a sellout? Or if I did get weird colored hair, would I then be a poser? See, it's just really difficult.
Yeah,
for me to figure
there's
out.
no real like. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's
Yeah.
like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
And
that's
the
punk
damned
rock.
are punk rock.
The damned are punk rock. So the damned do.
The damned, yeah, do, and they are.
They do.
They do and they are.
I am.
Oh my
there was
God.
there was a Muscatine band called I Am We Are, and I always
Wow.
liked that title.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Were
Yeah,
they good?
I like
mean, did you like
Yeah,
their
they
music?
were. Yeah, they were great. I don't. I mean, I know who was in the band. I think. I know that a dude who I used to play with named Ian was the drummer, and I don't even really remember the other members.
Wow.
And like, yeah, no, but they were good.
So they were
I
called
remember-
IN, like Ian, IN we are?
I Am We
no?
Are. No, I am.
was I Am.
We are.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah, I am. So like that just made me think of like the damned do and are. So that's
Nice.
That should have been an album title from them.
The damned do and are. I like it. We do and are.
We do who we are. We do are. So yeah, so basically what my takeaway is from our intro talk, our babble today. Goths rule,
Yeah.
hippies are okay,
Yeah.
and punkers are sellouts.
We nailed it. I'm sure everyone's very happy with themselves that they listened to us and learned so much. about
I mean, that is the goal.
subcultures. Yeah.
That is the goal of everything. Anytime you guys need any questions about what you need to do, just consult one of us. That would actually be a great time to message us on the Accelerativ Thrust.
Right. Yeah. If you have questions about what it takes to be goth, or what you can or can't do to be punk, then just let us know. Because I mean, we're obviously authorities. We have a podcast.
Right. You can't hate on that.
Nope.
Yep. You gotta love it.
Oh my God. Okay, let's get on with the music.
All right. That sounds really fantastic. Erik, I believe you're up to bat first.
All right. While I was sitting here talking, I was looking up death hippies to see if that was a real thing. Because I do think it's a real thing. I think that it kind of crosses over into cult territory sometimes. But,
right.
death obsessed
hold on.
hippies,
The band or the thing?
Oh, no, the thing. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
The thing that apparently I made up. But because of that, the first thing on my screen is the Wikipedia entry for death. It's like the second most wikied thing besides life. Life, death, sex. Those are the top wiki hits of all time.
The fact that there is Wikipedia pages about life, death, and sex really makes me wonder what other things there are Wikipedia pages for.
I bet they're for everything.
Everything. So like dirt. Like,
But one thing that's not on there, dirt, yeah. One thing that's not on there is the history of twang guitar.
That's not on Wikipedia?
Yeah. So I'm just going to have to talk about Duane Eddy, I guess. So,
well, there we go.
There you go.
That was a beautiful segue into
Thanks. So my first pick is a record by Duane Eddy. It's called Have Twangy Guitar Will Travel. It came out in 1958, which is a long time ago. You don't even have to do the math. That's a long time ago. So Duane Eddy basically was a guitar player, and maybe still is. I don't know if he's alive or not. Anyway, he pretty much invented the idea of twang guitar. And there'll be a lot of people that don't agree with me on that. Oh, he's still alive. He's 83. Maybe he'll listen to this.
Oh, wow.
But, okay, so the term twang, it's like can cover a couple of different things. The nasal singing associated with country, the sound of the pedal steel in country music, both of those things probably were referred to as twangy before what Duane Eddy did. But what Duane Eddy did was took a regular guitar, and he used a combination of reverb, tremolo, and a picking technique where he really snapped the bass strings when he played, and this became sort of what we now call like twang guitar, I guess. Examples of twang outside of Duane Eddy, I don't know. There's a lot of it. Everything from Twin Peaks to the Cactus Blossoms to endless country and early rockabilly songs. It's just the reach of twang is far and wide. So, and I am a twang worshiper. I love it. I love it in all of its forms, even if it gets a little cheesy, which is my first point about this Duane Eddy record. Don't go into this thinking it's all cool, like atmospheric, slow twang stuff like Twin Peaks. It's not. For the most part, this is early rock and roll. Veers into country a little bit sometimes. Some of the arrangements are really cheesy. There's a saxophone on nearly every song, and most of the time it ends up in this sort of Benny Hill style saxophone, which doesn't really exude coolness. But that's not really the point. This is more of a archaeological thing to hear what Duane Eddy's doing with the guitar. And then, of course, you have like Rebel Rouser, which is almost basically the pinnacle of twang guitar to this day. But there are some pretty cool atmospheric elements to it all, too. A couple songs that really stick out to me are Stalkin' is a song that could be put into just about any John Waters movie, but also just about any David Lynch movie. Loving You is a slow ballad, which has a really nice twang stuff. The Walker. The 3:30 Blues is another cool song. There's a lot of traditional ones too, though, like Cannonball and I don't know, Mason-Dixon Lion, which is actually kind of a cool song and has a recorded lion in it for no reason. Anyway, the percussion in it's pretty cool. The drummer comes in real hard, kind of sounds like a gorilla playing the drums. He just beats the shit out of them. There's a lot happening too in the backgrounds, which I'm always a big fan of. A lot of clapping, yelling, exclamations. You can tell it's a live band being recorded. And yeah, if you're into twang guitar, check this out. Some of it's going to be cheesy. I'll just tell you that up front, but the guitar playing is solid and you can see how it led to so much more in modern music. So yeah, what'd you think, Dan?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot. It is, as you said, and I'm not as familiar with the world of twang as you are. But yeah, this really did remind me of just kind of like spaghetti Western, Quentin Tarantino movie scores, stuff like that. Really, really beautiful, gorgeous tone. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to listen to. And I kind of wish that I could add more to it, but I kind of feel like you described it perfectly with your explanation, Eric. If you're a fan of twangy guitar at all, you're gonna love this. It's just I do want to kind of add to a point that you made about examples of twang. I also hear kind of like a surf rock element kind of going on as well. And I think that probably was heavily borrowed in the surf rock community quite a bit as well. But it's just really fun guitar work to listen to. You can tell that Duane Eddy was passionate about what he was playing. Yeah, if you're a fan of just that kind of stuff, I mean, think of like the like a slowed down version of a Dick Dale song, kind of. That's kind of where we're at with this. It's really, really great stuff.
Cool. Nice. Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. That's pretty much all I got to say about it.
Nice. Yeah, definitely surf and spaghetti Western are great. Other great examples of where the twang traveled, and it's cool because like it basically created those things, and that's
sure
pretty rare to have sort of a ground zero for so many different things. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's just the guitar tone is gorgeous. It always is. Like I love the kind of crystal clear emphasis on like the single notes that go on. You just don't hear that a lot. You know what I mean? Like just in terms of it's just got that really vintage sound. It's just, yeah, really, really good stuff. I enjoyed it for sure.
Nice.
Okay, so which one do I want to talk about first? I think I'm going to go the hip hop route, and I think I'm going to start off with Cunninlyguists. This is an album called A Piece of Strange. This is their third album, which came out in 2006. I've been a Cunninlyguist fan since probably 2002, 2003-ish. They have their first two albums were Will Rap for Food and then Southern Underground, which are both like they were staples in my hip hop rotation when I was really heavily into the underground indie stuff back in the early to mid 2000s. I didn't really give this album a chance until later. And I'm so glad I did, because I think without a doubt, in my opinion, this is their masterpiece. This is just a beautifully produced hip-hop record. And that's exactly what it is a hip-hop record, but there's a lot of other things going on. No is the producer in this group. He's also one of the rappers, spelled K-N-O. And then also Deacon the Villain is another one. Now, the thing about Cunninlyguists that I find very interesting is they are a Southern-based hip-hop group, and they really make no... I mean, they don't hide that. You can really hear it in the music. I would say probably even more so on the earlier records. But there definitely is a Southern identity that you can definitely hear, I think, thematically, just with their lyrics and their flows. At times, it almost feels like listening to an Outkast record or something like that. And of course, we all know that Outkast, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Outkast, the Ghetto Boys, UGK, all of that stuff basically defines Southern rap, you know? And so Cunninlyguists, they're actually from Lexington, Kentucky. And so Deacon the Villain, and then Natty, who is the third guy on this album, which actually he's a replacement. On the first two albums, they actually, let me see, I can't remember, and I feel horrible. I can't even remember the other guy's name at this point. But he was the third guy on the first two albums, and then for whatever reason, he left. I'm going to actually, bear with me, listeners, because I'm going to actually look it up, because it's going to drive me nuts. Mr. SOS. That's who that is. Mr. SOS was the third guy on the first two albums. And then it says here that they kicked him out. So I don't know exactly what happened, but he was replaced by Natty on this album. In any case, this album is considered a high concept record in the words of No and Deacon the Villain. And it tells the tale of the pathway to and from sin. And when that totally makes sense when you listen to the lyrics and the themes that are kind of coming out. There's a lot of what sounds like sort of just reflection on life, and maybe reflection on, things that a person has done wrong, or the struggle between what is right and what is wrong. There's just some really gorgeous, almost like flamenco guitars that kind of go into some of this, and it's just got just a really, really smooth, sometimes it almost borders on G-funk or something even. It's just got that really smooth sort of hip-hop, but there's also still definitely without a doubt a rawness to it as well. And probably even more so than the smooth part of it. But I don't know, there's songs on here like Hellfire, which actually samples the Arthur Brown song Hellfire, which I think is awesome. And then one of my favorite songs is called America Loves Gangsters. Never Know Why, which features the Mortal Technique. Brain Cell has one of my favorite beats, maybe ever, on a hip-hop record. But I think that if you're a fan of Outkast, early Kanye, even some conscious stuff, I would say, De La Soul or A Tribe Called Quest, and some of the more abstract stuff, maybe the West Coast sort of boom bap stuff like Far Side. I wouldn't call it a boom bap record, but I would say that it's as close to a boom bap record as a Southern hip hop record is going to get. But at the same time, I just feel like there's so much more going on here than to just call it one type of a hip hop record. The samples are fantastic. They're utilized in a very smart way. No and Deacon the Villain and Natty are all just I mean, their lyrics are just totally just on point with the theme, and you can just tell that a really huge amount of work to produce like a really high quality record from the end of the Cunninlyguists themselves was just put forth in this record. If you're a fan of any of this sort of hip hop, then I strongly recommend it. I would also recommend checking out their other albums too. This one is definitely the most conceptual, and I think ultimately that's what makes it as good as it is. But there's gems in pretty much this entire group's catalog. What did you think, Erik?
Yeah. I ended up really liking this. I gotta say, I never, ever, ever would have listened to this if you didn't pick it. And I know that sounds terrible, but the name of the group, the name of the record, and the artwork all together would lead me to think this was something different than it ended up being. So I'm not going to say I'm offended by it. I don't really get offended by things, but it just seemed like it would be really, I don't know, really macho, really
Sure.
male centric, and so if, like I said, if I would have picked this record up at the record store and looked at it, I would have been like, no, this absolutely is not for me. Like, I just am not into that kind of thing, or what I had thought it was going to be. But I was completely wrong. So I really liked it, and I loved the sample choices. The production was really cool. When it first started, again, I was like, I don't know, because it is just sort of like a classical guitar, almost like a flamenco guitar or something. And I was like, okay, well, what's going to happen? But then it changes, and it changes like constantly. And it's assembled in a really constantly engaging way. Like, I was never bored through any of it. And so, and I'm not a big lyrics person, so I didn't really listen to what they were saying that much, but the sound of the voices and the processing of the vocals were really cool. Parts of it sounded like the D'Angelo record with all the auto tuning things.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded kind of like Busta Rhymes at times, a real gravelly sound. Yep. My wife was walking by and she said, "Oh, is that Jurassic 5?" Because one of the guys kind of sounds like that Verbo Herman Munster guy, And so a lot of different vocals happening, which is cool. And like I said, I loved the production. I loved the sound of it. It was a really engaging and cool record. And yeah, I would say that all the things that Dan mentioned, if you're into that stuff, you're probably going to like this, because I can't imagine a better example of those things. I really can't.
Yeah.
I feel like if there were a better example of what these guys were trying to accomplish, I would have heard of it, because it would be huge. It would be considered a masterpiece. And not to say that this one isn't, but I can't imagine there's just a better example of this, is what I'm trying to say. And speaking of samples, you pointed out the Hellfire sample. There was also a really cool sample of Melanie, who's one of my favorite singers. The song Leftover Wine by Melanie is the main sample for the song What'll You Do on this. So that was really cool. As soon as it started, I was like, what the fuck, Melanie? Like, no hip-hop artist has ever sampled Melanie. So I ended up thinking it was really cool and enjoying it a lot. But the reason I mention all that is because I don't want the same fate to happen to other people. I don't want them to look at the name of the record and the cover art and be like, no, I'm not even going to give this a shot. So
it's actually funny you mentioned that, because I was actually reading an article about this, and Deacon the Villain actually acknowledged pretty much everything you just said. He
Oh,
actually said
yeah.
that he actually thinks that, and he actually pointed it out in the interview. He said our whack ass name might have turned a lot of people off.
Well,
And,
honestly, if the name was the same, but the artwork and the name of the record were different, if it were a little more subdued and cerebral, I think I definitely would have already heard of this record. So
Yeah, it's
I don't know. I don't want to say they did themselves a disservice because it's not my path. They're on their own path and they made those decisions. And what I think people should do doesn't matter, especially if they're literally 10,000 times more successful than me. But
yeah.
I think that maybe a few more people would have listened to it if those things were different. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
Agreed. It's definitely one of those. Yeah, it definitely is kind of. It almost falls into the, mindless self-indulgence
Yeah,
category in a different
sure.
way.
Yep.
Where I definitely totally get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And there, just like a lot of hip hop, and I'm not defending it,
Mm-hmm.
but just like a lot of hip hop from this period of time, there is on some not really on this record, but on
Mm-hmm.
other records from this group, but other records from other rap groups I listen. There is some misogyny that kind of goes on lyrically and things like that.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's definitely not a defense, but it is what it is. That,
it is just part
you
of
know,
it. And,
it's
you
just
know,
part of it. It's
you
part
don't
of
have
what
to
went
listen to
down.
things that bother you. So
Exactly.
You know.
But I just think it's a gorgeously produced.
Yeah, I do
rap
too.
record.
It was really
I mean,
cool.
I think the inclusion of guitars was just really awesome on it.
Oh yeah, they
And,
put everything in there. A lot of organ, Hammond organ, all over the place.
yeah,
It's a really well made record. So
absolutely. Okay,
cool.
Moving
so my second choice, the third record of the show, is by a duo called Mrs. Piss. The record is called Self Surgery. It came out in 2020. All right, so Mrs. Piss is a project from Chelsea Wolfe and Jess Gowrie. I've heard a lot about Chelsea Wolfe, but have never listened to her music. So I'm not sure where this falls in the realm of what she already does. This might just be run of the mill for Chelsea Wolfe. I have no idea. And Jess Gowrie is, they had a band together at one point, and she also has been putting out stuff under her own name as well. So anyway, this is a project with those two sort of getting back together and working together on songs. This is a nearly impossible record for me to describe. And honestly, I feel like the record that Dan is about to talk about, I won't give it away, but I feel like they're sort of like sister releases in a way. Like I'm probably going to talk about them in really similar ways. And it's not because they sound like each other. It's just the approach is similar, where it's hard for me to know what the hell is going on with either of them. So anyway, Mrs. Piss, there are tons of elements in this. Sludgy, industrial, synthwave. But overall, the biggest thing that I took from it was like kind of a noise-oriented punk kind of thing. Specifically, I'm talking about Sonic Youth. It had a real serious Sonic Youth element to it for me. It wasn't like it was poppy, but it's melodic and noisy. So yeah, Sonic Youth I hear a lot in there. Early PJ Harvey in sort of the extreme changes in the sound, and also the really blown out production, like everything is in the red kind of the entire time. Tons of effects on the vocals. Vocally, I think it sounded a lot like Susie and the Banshees, but that might just be my own leaning, as a goth, as we all are. But yeah, so there's a lot going on. the elements here are all familiar, but they're put together in a really new way. It was super enjoyable. Like I loved it, and I loved the songs, which with the description I just gave of that, ending with "I love the songs" might sound funny, but it really was the songs for me that carried this record through. But I would say it goes a lot of places, and it does go a little noisy. So if you hate noise, don't check it out. But if you can handle a little bit of noise, I think it's super enjoyable and actually a lot of fun to listen to. So what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I loved it. It's funny because, and I mentioned this to you in a conversation we were having one time, Eric, I think a couple days ago, that I had no idea when I was listening to this that this was Chelsea Wolfe. And until you pointed that out to me, because I listened to it, but I didn't do any research at all. And I just started listening to Chelsea Wolfe. So it's kind of ironic. Or did I tell you that?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I did. I had just started listening to Chelsea Wolfe, and she's somebody who's been on my radar for a while because I have some friends that really dig her. And so I've been meaning to check her out for a while. Well, I recently made a Spotify playlist of all of her stuff.
Cool.
And I think I've made it to like her third album. And then I listened to this. And then you mentioned it was a Chelsea Wolfe side project, because one of the first things that popped up in my mind when I was listening to it is like, this is like a more punk rock version of Chelsea Wolfe. Like that's exactly what I thought of when I listened to it. And then you told me that. I hear a lot of, like you said, sort of shoegazy, Sonic Youth, noisy kind of stuff. I definitely hear that. And what this record kind of reminds me of is like the aesthetic of that mixed with like a combination of like almost like a more gothic version of something like Slater-Kinney. Hole, and PJ Harvey I definitely hear a lot. But I mean I kind of hear that sort of in Chelsea Wolfe, sort of in general. But like there's definitely a darker like side to it, I think. It's 100% everything that Chelsea Wolfe touches is just very original, and it's very, very satisfying. One of the things I really liked about this record, I liked how it was just really just kind of just punchy and just never let up. Like it just really like, it's intense, and it's 8 songs. It's only 8 songs, so it's very short. And I think that was perfect. I think it was I don't know if this is considered a full length or an EP, but either way, the length is like the perfect length for it.
I'm starting to really get into 20-minute records. I think they're pretty cool. Short records are definitely, there is something to be said about short records. I mean, for sure, especially in this day and age where I think everybody just kind of, the attention span is not, I think the attention span of the average music listener is not what it was when CDs were in stores everywhere. You have to release a double disc of 2 20-minute discs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a double LP.
It's a double LP, exactly.
It's 40 minutes long.
Not you don't really hear, it's more difficult to get somebody to listen to like if Tool's Anima came out today, I think it would be more difficult to get people to listen to that. If it was Tool's like first album, you know what I mean? Like then it was in '96 when it came out. You know what I mean? Like, so aside from all that though, this is fantastic. You, if you're a fan of Chelsea Wolfe, if you're a fan of Sonic Youth, the Pixies, even like stuff to a certain extent, like the Velvet Underground or something like that, Bajas, I heard some of that in there. If you're a fan of like sort of like shoegazy punk rock with some really rad vocals, that's what this is. And if you like Chelsea Wolfe's vocals, you're in luck.
Because that's what they are.
That's what they are. It's absolutely fantastic. But
Cool. Yeah.
yeah, I loved it. I love this Mrs. Piss. I also really like the name, by the way.
Yeah, it's fun to say. Mrs. Piss.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so, geez, we're moving right along. This is my last pick, isn't it?
Yep, and then we're going to talk about Sinner Frenz.
All right, Sinner Frenz. So, Erik kind of already set it up a little bit, and I actually kind of agree with him. This is a record from an artist known as EMA. Her name is Erica Michelle Anderson, or Erica M. Anderson, so she performs under the name EMA.
Oh, makes sense.
One of the things, two things are very interesting about EMA to me. Number one is that there seems to be an aura of mystery surrounding her, which I like. Because I've tried finding a lot of stuff out, like I tried to kind of research EMA a little bit when I picked this record. And there just isn't really a lot of info about her, but I know that she's a really great singer-songwriter, and she does some of the strangest, I don't even want to call it necessarily pop music, but it kind of is. And mixed with like the aesthetic of like, I don't know, art punk or something. The second thing is how I discovered this artist. So, and I don't even remember. Oh, I do know how I came across it. So, she actually did a "What's in My Bag" episode at Amoeba Music on YouTube, and I just thought, seeing her, I was like, this. She seems really interesting. She picked a lot of really interesting like picks. And I think this is all the way back in like 2010 or 2011 or something. But she had a really interesting take on one of the records she picked. The first George Thorogood and the Destroyers album. And my dad is a huge George Thorogood fan, you know. And the way she described that record was like, it was almost like if blues met krautrock. And
Wow.
and I thought that was really interesting. I've never heard anybody like talk about George Thorogood that way.
No, I'm going to have to test that out.
Yeah. I don't think she was talking about the sound of krautrock. I think what she was saying was the way that they jam. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like there's almost like a krautrock aesthetic to like the approach of like blues. I'm not sure what she meant by
Okay,
it.
cool.
But it was the most interesting description I've ever heard of a straight up blues musician, you know, like so that caught my eye right away. So then she does have a Wikipedia page, but there just isn't a lot of info on it. But I learned that this is her second release, which is called, oh my God, you can't, Past Life Martyred Saints. I can't believe that I forgot that for a second. But her first tape was called Little Sketches on Tape, and it was on none other than Night People Records.
Yeah.
So it was on Sean Reed's label, who we interviewed.
I was certain
that's
that's how you found out about EMA, but
yeah,
that's awesome.
But it was
a surprise.
It was a total surprise. So,
Nice.
Okay. So let me get into this record. This record is awesome. I absolutely love it. It's just really like this noisy, sometimes folky, sometimes very indie rock, at times almost industrial, experimental pop record. Sometimes it reminds me of something like PJ Harvey. Sometimes it reminds me of Nico. Sometimes it reminds me of, something like, I don't know, like, who's that one pop star that does that Foils song? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. Somebody knows it. And I should know it. But anyway, okay, let me think of another like modern. Lana Del Rey or somebody like that. You know what I mean? Just sort of like that kind of stuff. Like, but then I just think it has a much more interesting approach than not to take, because I actually kind of dig some Lana Del Rey, but I just think that, like, obviously the way EMA is approaching her music is she's putting a lot of experimentation into it. There's a lot of sounds, like very interesting sounds, like almost sci-fi-ish. The first track that this record opens up with always blows my mind, because it's like 7 minutes long or something like that. But it starts off one tempo and then moves into a completely different tempo and guitar part, and it almost turns into like a different song. It's called The Gray Ship. It's just absolutely fantastic, and the way that it kind of spins into like that second part really reminds me sort of like structural wise of like Teeth Like God's Shoeshine by Modest Mouse. And it's just, so you got some of that noodly guitar kind of going on too, like Built to Spill or something like that. But at the heart of it, what I think this record is an indie rock record with a lot of different sounds on it. It's, very, I think it's very cool sounding. I really like it. What do you think, Erik?
Oh yeah, I liked it a lot. It was, again, kind of like the Mrs. Piss record. It was really hard to figure out where this sits, which is always good. Like, if you hear me say, like, I am not sure what kind of music this is, that is a positive thing. Like, if I were able to just say this is this, then it's kind of boring, and you don't really have much room to explore. It's kind of like when you get a new record, usually by a band you already like, and then you hear 3 or 4 songs on that record, and you're like, oh, those are my favorites, those are the best songs. And then like a year later or something, you're like, those songs suck. The good stuff is the stuff I didn't expect or know how to take when I first heard it, you know? So this is kind of like that. It slowly and seamlessly changes over time, not just within the songs, but from song to song. Every song is sort of different, you know? Excuse me. And yet it's really interesting and enjoyable, but also cohesive in just sort of the atmosphere that's created. And, you know, just kind of has a cohesion just within the record itself, even though, like I said, song by song, it really goes a lot of places, and it changes a lot. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. But for me, it definitely, the thing it reminded me of the most of, which is going to sound really strange, is the first Roaches record. I don't know, Dan, if you've listened to the Roaches.
No, I never heard that.
It's a group of 3 sisters, and they sing in harmony. And it's really good, and it's really folky, but it's really kind of strange and off-putting because their voices are so tight and strange sounding. It was also produced by Robert Fripp. And so you have these really kind of normal folky type songs with this really crazy 3-part harmony. And then all of a sudden Robert Fripp's guitar comes in, and it's just that long sustained notes. I think you were talking about the Modest Mouse element of that. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about the same kind of idea with just these long sustained, almost fuzzy guitar solos. Even though they might be 3 or 4 notes, it's still a solo. But yeah, if anyone out there listens to the Roaches, and that's their last name, it's not like the Cockroaches. Okay. Then I think you're going to find a weird comfort in this EMA record. I don't know how else to describe that, but because of that, it also kind of reminded me of Brian Eno and John Cale stuff when they've gotten together too. But that's one side of the music. The other side, I would say the softer elements of the Breeders and Nirvana. Like there's some kind of acoustic stuff that goes in half steps and really has a grungy feel to it. But then another element of it is like maybe like the yeah yeah yeahs. Like it's a lot of noise, a lot of and I don't even dare to say shoegaze because I don't think it's that atmospheric. I think it's like noise. But it's really well done and really good. Vocally, like I said, everything changes all the time, but she really reminded me of Lou Reed and like Street Hassle era Lou Reed when he's talking a lot. And therefore also Patti Smith, who does that a lot, kind of that talk singing. Patti Smith in general, I think the vocals are similar, but then there's also elements that are like vocally and song performance wise are kind of listless and lazy, which that's not an insult coming from me, but so like Liz Phair always came off as kind of like listless to me, like not a lot of energy, but that's kind of what makes it cool too. And I guess by default maybe Mazzy Star or something like that too, but just the general sort of laziness at times, which is awesome because it gives it a nice mellow druggy kind of feel to it, very cool feel, you know. But yeah, it was super enjoyable. I think I'm gonna listen to this one a lot. Like I only listened to it a couple times. I was running behind on my music listening for this episode, and I can't wait to get back to this and give it, I don't even know how many more listens, as many as it takes to sort of understand what's happening. So I loved it.
It's definitely a fantastic record. Everything you said is just so on point as far as like the comparisons go and everything. I mean, it's just, but it's like so EMA's own thing.
Oh,
as well.
For sure.
At the same time, it's so like, honestly, it's hard for me to really think of anything else that I can really think that sounds exactly like this.
Oh yeah, I can't think of anything exactly like it at all.
It's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so that brings us to the Sinner Frenz. The Sinner Frenz is the local review that we're doing this week. This is going to be a little different than past reviews because we're actually not reviewing like a full-length release. What this actually is a handful of singles that they put on Spotify. So far, and I think the Sinner Frenz are going to probably just keep uploading singles on Spotify. That's kind of what I don't know if they have plans to eventually release like a full-length album or not, but I just thought that this was so interesting that we should review it because it's coming from somebody who's been actively involved in recording a lot of bands. But he's also performed in other projects that he himself has been into. And we're talking about Mr. Luke Tweedy, who is the founder of Flat Black Studios. And he's been a fixture in recording both Iowa City and other regional bands, anybody who comes into a studio. And this dude is a master at recording audio engineering. He's just super good. One of my bands recorded with him a super long time ago. I have tons of friends that have recorded with him. And so he's got this project called Sinner Frenz, and I'm not really sure if it's just him, like on the recordings. I don't think so. I'm not sure who else is involved with it. I do know that there's a live video where he has a drummer, and I'm not sure if that's a permanent member or if it's just a live performer. But in any case, what this is it's it's a synth project, basically. But I mean, it's anything but basic. It's done very, very well. It's not really unlike, some of the other stuff that we have reviewed, like Endless Reach, but it's also at the same time very unlike all that stuff. It's definitely like its own take on the sort of synth type stuff. And also there's some soundscape stuff going on throughout the 7 singles. So the 7 singles are as follows. I'm going to go ahead and just release them. And I don't know, I guess we're kind of reviewing it as sort of a makeshift EP. So it's The Human Error, Low Key, I'll Be on the Water, Boss on the Cross, Here the Hammer Falls. I have to click Here the Hammer Falls hardest. Cardano ADA, and Sin Coming On. I really like the name Sinner Frenz, by the way. Like I said, Luke has been involved in different projects throughout. I don't know. How long would you say he's been a staple in recording like Iowa City bands and like other DIY bands, Eric? At least 20 years at this point.
Yeah, probably. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, 20 years at, his cousin is actually William Elliott Whitmore. And he's another excellent artist that I would recommend checking out if you're into sort of the more Americana type stuff. Mm-hmm. But Sinner Frenz, this is a heavily based synth project, and I think it's done really well. There's one of the tracks, I think that it's mostly instrumental, but I think it's I'll Be on the Water, I think, has some vocals, some very cool robotic vocals. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a different take on the synth stuff, but I would say that if you're a fan of the John Carpenter stuff, I would say that if you're a fan of Custer and Silver Apples and the Stranger Things soundtrack and stuff like that, you would like this for sure. It's just, to me, like, all 7 of these are really, really cool. I will say that I bet you anything that it would be enhanced by the live performance, because from what I've seen, you can also go to YouTube and there is a video of them performing at this thing that Luke puts on actually at the studio outside in his yard, because his studio is actually in a barn out in the country. And he puts on this festival called the Gray Area Festival, and Sinner Frenz actually performed there 3 years ago. And it just looked like a great time. So I think that this is definitely something that it's really cool to listen to. But I bet it would just be a blast to see live. What did you think, Eric?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say that I know Luke all that well. I don't know. Iowa City's a weird place. I think I've talked about this before, where you can see the same people for like 20 years and talk to them and see them at shows, and you're friendly, but you don't really hang out. You know what I mean? So mm-hmm. Luke and I get along fine, and he's about the only person in town that I can talk to about modular synths. And usually if we do see each other, it's like, hi, how are you? Great. Let's talk about modular synths. And that's it. So, it's nice to hear someone doing a project, with modular. It's not something that, I don't know, a lot of people put out their modular music. I mean, at least around here. This might be the only project that I can really think of in this area. But yeah, it's cool because it utilizes samples. At least it sounded like samples to me. Vocals on some songs, which definitely takes it out of the realm of just kind of your standard modular noise scapes, which I unfortunately is sort of the standard for this kind of music is just, the general, I think I've talked about the noise performance arc, you get quiet, you get really loud, you get quiet again.
Yep.
And that takes 20 minutes. So this doesn't necessarily fall into that. I definitely feel like there's a goal here. And they do come off as songs versus just explorations. I think that the way Luke switches what's happening, I don't know how much of it's live. I don't know how much of it's recorded. It's not like he doesn't have the resources to record multiple tracks and mix them and do things with them. But I would guess that a lot of this is sort of happening in real time, because that's kind of the joy of modular, is that things grow and change with little nudges from you, but they a lot of times do sort of their own thing. And there's elements of that come through on this, but also very in control. I don't think any element of this has been left to chance, but it definitely isn't overdone as well. There's it's and because this isn't a release, I'm not going to talk about how different everything is, or how maybe there's not a lot of connective tissue or whatever, because that's not what's happening here. This is 7 singles, and so I think they should be kind of looked at it on their own merit. And with that being said, almost every one of them is slightly different than the other. You have some things that have stretchy, bouncy, fun synths with subtle rhythmic elements, other things with heavy drums, almost Trans Am level drum parts. There's things with nice use of like the carpless strong synthesis, which I've talked about before. That's sort of like the filter you use for the harp sound, or like drops, drippy string pluck sounds. There's a lot of that going on, a lot of great use of white noise. A lot of John Carpenter-esque synth leads that are arpeggiating and being run through a filter. I think that's the one you said, if you like Stranger Things, that's kind of like the recipe for that sound.
Right.
That track's called The Human Error. It was one I really liked a lot.
The first one?
Well, I don't know. We listened to them all in different orders, I'm sure. Well, so I think I started at the... Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first one that... at least it's the earliest one listed on.
Oh, okay. I think I went backwards, so...
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. The reason why I said that, though, that just reminded me, I absolutely love how that starts out with sort of like what sounds like a pre-programmed sort of, what do they call that? Just like a, like the, like you were saying, the arpeggiated sort of,
right. Yep.
And then all of a sudden this really dark, brooding, like, it's the best. Yeah, the big fat tone. Yeah. That blew me away, how that those two like interconnected there. Sorry to interrupt there, Eric.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, because it does have sort of that arpeggiated thing, but it also does have those kind of drippy sounds too. It's really nice.
Yeah.
There's also in the track Low Key, there was a really nice almost can-ish reed synth sound, almost like a accordion or something. I thought that was really cool. I liked everywhere that this went. I said, it doesn't come off as super cohesive, but that's not the point. Like, I sort of felt weird reviewing this without it being an actual release anyway. So hopefully that doesn't offend Luke or anyone else. But I think that it was cool to talk about it, because I've wanted to talk about Sinner Frenz for a while. And until we get a release, this is what we got to work with. So...
and he made an announcement on Instagram about it, and I was just like, you know what, that's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Even though it's not like
cool.
I totally get what you're saying about the whole release thing. That's why I wanted to list off each individual song.
Yeah, for sure.
Because to emphasize that this is not a full length album, and in no way. But if there's anybody in this scene, in this local music scene, like, and when I say local, I'm not talking about Muscatine, because if I was, that would be sad. Because Muscatine, I mean, there are have been some great bands from around here, but I'm not just talking about I'm talking about Iowa City, Quad Cities, hell, even Des Moines, Waverly, wherever, Iowa, Illinois.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who's going to do electronic music in any capacity and is going to just completely deliver on every expectation in a good way, in like a phenomenal way, it's going to be Luke Tweedy. Like that dude just, like I said, he's a wizard when it comes to, like, I feel just the studio. You know what I mean? Like I've recorded in a lot of studios, and I still to this day, I can't think of someone who just knew his way around. And I'm talking, I mean, it's been 15 years since I've recorded with him. My interactions with Luke are very similar to yours. We run into each other every now and then. Before then, it was just pretty much limited to when I went to the record collector. That's another piece of knowledge, is that he used to actually work at the record collector in Iowa City. And every time I went up there, I would kind of talk to him about music and stuff. I remember he one time I bought a whole bunch of different stuff, and he pointed out how eclectic my music taste seems to be. And I took that as a compliment,
Nice.
And so we got to talking. And, but yeah, I can't think of anybody who, knows his way around a studio better than Luke Tweedy, around this area. I mean, there's a lot of really good people that, are really good in the studio, but Luke Tweedy definitely has his own stamp, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I expected Sinner Frenz to be good, and I think he delivered. I hope they put out, there's two things I hope. Number one, I hope they do put out a full length, because I would love to hear a full length from this group, or at least an EP. Or like I said, I don't know if Sinner Frenz is just Luke, or if it's like a group. I don't really know much about Sinner Frenz other than Luke Tweedy is involved.
I think last time I talked to Luke, it was just him, but who knows?
Okay.
That's been a while,
So I hope that this project puts out a full length. Number two, and Luke, if you're going to listen to this is, I'm just going to throw this out there. I hope you come on our podcast and talk to us about everything. And give us, you know what I mean? Like, I would hope that, I think Luke should come on the podcast. What do you think, Erik?
Yeah, I think that it'd be pretty fun to ask him about all that. And yeah, he's got a long history here, so for sure.
All right. So an invitation to Luke Tweedy.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting out the Sinner Frenz project. It was really good. So I'm looking at this bottle of water, and I didn't realize this, but Hy-Vee water is purified by reverse osmosis.
Oh, yeah.
That thing that gets all of the bad stuff out of water.
It's true. Yeah, it has something to do with rocks.
Like the Aerosmith album?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything has to do with Aerosmith.
Definitely in the 80s and 90s, it seemed that way. At least the radio. Well, I guess the radio still has everything to do with Aerosmith nowadays.
Pretty much.
Still, because they haven't evolved.
Yeah. Yep, you'd have to be crazy to not listen to Aerosmith.
Wasn't that one of their songs, Crazy?
Yeah, and if you've never heard it, I bet that you were crying.
Yeah, when you met me.
Yeah, or maybe you were just out there living on the edge, and and sometimes that's what it takes.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say something, and then you beat me to it.
Well, I'm sorry to treat you like a rag doll, Dan.
That Steven Tyler really likes the color pink because it's his favorite color.
Wait, what? Oh, pink.
Yeah. You know that song, don't you?
Yeah, I just heard it the other day for some reason, and I had forgotten about it completely. So, they really did have a lot of hits.
They really did. What's weird about that is I don't know what that song's necessarily about, like, other than just like pink is his favorite color, but it seems like he's embracing like this idea that like what you sound very hesitant to talk about this.
I think Aerosmith songs are only about one thing. He's just being very specific about it in this song.
Oh, tell me what that one thing is.
Getting laid.
Is that really what that song? I know that, like, obviously, like, Love in an Elevator and stuff like that is about that, but
yeah,
I mean that's not what Living on the Edge is about, isn't it? I mean, I don't know.
Even if subject matter wise, here's my take on Aerosmith. Right, so the other guys in the band write a really cool intro, like the intro to Janie's Got a Gun, right? Awesome.
Right.
And then Steven Tyler and Joe Perry say, okay, yeah, that's real good, but how's it going to get me laid? And then they take over and write it into some just dumbass blues rock song. That's my theory.
Well,
anyway.
okay, all right, I get what you're saying. All right, so it's not necessarily even the content of the lyrics.
Well, not always, but I think Pink is pretty much just about,
getting laid.
Sex. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, never mind. I was gonna talk about, like, since you put it that way, that totally makes sense. But like, I was literally gonna like talk about something else, and I'm
sorry
glad
to interrupt.
Well, no, but it ended up being better that you interrupted me and explained it to me, because apparently I didn't know what the song Pink was actually about. But yeah, I only heard, to be fair, I've only heard that song really only like two. I don't even know why I referenced it, because I've only heard it like twice. So it's pretty funny. Like, I've heard Living on the Edge 100 times. But I will say, though, that the Weird Al version is far superior, and I don't know why that wasn't a single from him. Living in the Fridge.
Nice. Pink as
great.
the Bing on your cherry.
Okay, so
Pink,
that's all right.
because you are so very pink. It's the color of passion, because today it just goes with the fashion. Oh, so maybe it is about wearing pink clothes.
Well, see, that's kind of what I was wondering, because, okay, all right. This is what I was going to say then, okay? So it seemed like he was embracing the fact that it's okay for a man to wear pink, which, which is something that has kind of not been, like, according to, the male societal standards or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like, pink.
Except for him.
Dudes don't wear pink.
He's been wearing pink.
He
whole
even
time.
sings about it.
Yeah, he
right.
wears like a pink jumpsuit, I think, in the Walk This Way video, if I remember right.
Right. But then, like, in the 80s, they had, like, Dude Looks Like a Lady, I actually found out, I guess, it was actually mocking a specific person who was in another band at that time.
Oh, I see.
I think it might have been mocking Vince Neil. Or somebody like that.
I see.
Vince Neil, or maybe Bret Michaels or somebody like that. But then didn't Steven Tyler wear makeup too?
Yeah, I think he still does.
Yeah. And in fact, he wears pink.
Yep.
So there you go. Another contradiction in rock music. They exist.
It's the biggest part of rock music.
It really is, yeah. Rock music may be the most hypocritical style of music out there.
Don't do as I do, do as I say, walk this way.
Walk this way.
I think that's the lyrics, right? No, it's not. I'm just lying. That's what I do best.
I almost trained myself to be like, really? Those are the lyrics? But then I realized that no, they weren't.
You're starting to pick up on my lying voice. So
a little bit.
Yeah, good.
You're so convincing with that. You're a really, really good non-truth teller.
Thanks. I've been working on it for a long time.
Let's just lie about it. So, folks, this has been really fun, hasn't it? Talking about Aerosmith, and
Oh yeah.
soda. We talked about caffeine. We talked about consequences in life, and
We talked
Stuff
about
like
the new suicide VR app we're developing.
yeah, the suicide VR app. And I thought it was a V8 app. So.
Kill yourself in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you what, folks. This was a hell of a ride. So if you have any, I don't know, questions or complaints,
Yeah.
please just send them to the Accelerativ Thrust Facebook or the Instagram. They're both Accelerativ Thrust.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we would be glad to hear them. And
Yeah.
so you all have a great.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh,
Sorry to
oh,
interrupt.
sorry.
Next episode we're gonna have Gabby Vanek on to be interviewed. So make sure you listen for that because it should be pretty cool, fun, and interesting. She's a real cool person. So yeah.
All right. Yes, that'll be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks everyone for listening. And you all have a wonderful day, night, afternoon, whenever.
Future.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's what I'm going to say.
Have a-
You all have a good future.
A good future.
Have a great future, lady. That's what I'm going to say from
Oh,
now on
well.
because it makes more sense than, yeah, it's too much work to say day, evening, afternoon. It's like,
Yeah.
I could just cover it all by saying future because there's no way they're going to listen to this in the past.
They can't. We're listening
No.
to it currently. There is no
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, there is no past. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
The only past that exists is in our minds. It's
Mm-hmm.
within us.
Yeah.
So, and the future, what was it that Beck said one time in an interview? He said, the past is a canceled check.
Whoa.
Your maximum port of power is now.
Wow. Yeah. That Beck.
And he was lighting up. He was lighting up a pipe while doing it. So that made it all make sense. All right. So yeah, have a good future, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.